I think this is going to be a better series than people think. I mean, I put a lot of thought into this one, you know. I did say I was in agreement with Rudo all year. Like, I think the Cup goes through Florida in the East, right? And then, but something made me change my mind here. I mean, we'll see the predictions, but I mean, if it's not Tampa, then it's, somebody else, right? I don't know. I just think it'll be a little closer than with. I think the injury to Sam Bennett, they're saying he might be back here soon enough, but I think it does make a big difference here, especially against Boston.
The other Eastern Conference series, Florida versus Boston. Florida took care of their business in 5 games. Boston took Game 7 overtime against the Leafs to make round 2. Let's start with Florida, as they are the Cup favorites for many people this season, making short work of a Tampa team that may be at the end of their rope. They come in as one of the best teams from the East. To me, this team has it all. I don't see a whole lot of flaws in their game, but are they a team that can do it again? They went on the Cup final run last year, obviously came up short. Do you guys think a little bit of fatigue is set in, or is this their year?
I mean, it certainly didn't look like it against Tampa.
Yeah.
So, off to a good start, and I think this is a good matchup for them because I don't think Boston's great. So,
I'm with you on this, but I have it on good authority that some people have more respect for Boston than I do on this couch.
They'll be good. They'll be good. I mean, I think this is going to be a better series than people think. I mean, I put a lot of thought into this one, I did say I was in agreement with Rudo all year. Like, I think the Cup goes through Florida in the East, right? And then, but something made me change my mind here. I mean, we'll see the predictions, but I mean, if it's not Tampa, then it's, somebody else, right? I don't know. I just think it'll be a little closer than with. I think the injury to Sam Bennett, they're saying he might be back here soon enough, but I think it does make a big difference here, especially against Boston. I don't know. We'll dive into it right now, but I think it'll be a little closer than people think. But I did say at the start of the year with Rudo that was our team to come out of the East. But I'm changing my trajectory here.
I think that Boston has more scoring punch than the first round suggested. And I think that Florida outside of their top line has more scoring punch than the first round suggested. And so that's what's scary is I do expect players like Pasternak to be even more effective for Boston going into round 2. And they need more from those players, Pavel Zacha, Charlie Coyle. But they got a lot out of Brad Marchand, who was a terrific emotional leader for them, especially in games 3 and 4. And so if Zacha, Coyle, and Pasternak give more for Boston, that could give Florida some problems. But what Florida did so well against Tampa in the first round was their strong team defense. They worked well together as a 5-man unit and limited Tampa's shots on net. And because scoring didn't necessarily come easily for Boston, if they continue to play as tightly as they did in the first round, that could pose a problem. I look at goaltending for both sides, and I think it's strong on either side. Obviously, Swayman had a terrific series for Boston, but I think Bobrovsky has the experience, and that's going to be interesting to see. And obviously, there's a little bit of a fun revenge component for Boston going into this after the letdown that they had last year. I think that what's interesting about what Boston did in the first round is I thought that they played a little too passive in games 3 and 4. And so when I shout out Brad Marchand, he was kind of the heartbeat through those games. Boston can't afford to be passive at all in this series because I think Florida is full of so much heart, especially having just been to the final last year, that I think that will be the difference maker for both these teams. Who wants it more?
Here's my fear for Boston. I just watched that team spend multiple games putting up 3 shots in 50 minutes of hockey when you're looking at first periods against a Toronto defense that, let's be honest, that Toronto defense wasn't that good.
What are the lower tier defenses? If you were to rank all the playoff teams, Toronto would be like 12th-ish. Like, it's just not a good defensive team at that point.
Meanwhile, Florida has Ekblad, has the emergence of Gustav Forsling as a real pot pairing defenseman. And you even look down the lineup, maybe not as defensively minded, but someone like a Brandon Montour. Florida's defense is markedly better than Toronto's to me. And you look up the lineup into the forward core, guys like a Sasha Barkov, someone like a Matt Tkachuk that can play physical Boston Bruins style hockey. I worry about their ability to generate offense beyond the Pasternak and Marchands of their lineup. And I think that goes through the rest. We can bring up Florida's top scorers here of round one. To me, Florida is just a team built for the playoffs, man. Verhaeghe has been incredibly clutch for them. I mentioned Tkachuk. Eric talked about getting a Sam Bennett type back.
But you have Anton Lundell and Gustav Forsling there.
Yeah, that's true.
Does good production out of those guys.
Yep.
Anton Lundell especially because, as Megan mentioned, just getting that production lower in the lineup, you got to have it at some point.
Yep.
Like it's great you're not going to win a series on depth alone. You need your stars to be dope, but that what can push you a little bit forward is an Anton Lundell type.
Yep.
I worried about Florida's defense, too, after last year, how it will hold up losing some players like Radko Gudas. And I think that Oliver Ekman-Larsson has been satisfactory for them, has actually been pretty steady. And Gustav Forsling, I think, had an emergence last year as well,
fair,
but continues to be a reliable player on their back end that I do feel a little bit more confident in what's going on with Florida's back end at the moment, only because Brandon Carlo gets a little banged up in the last round, a little worried about just how that looks throughout another second round that's likely to be also highly physical. And so typically I really hold Bruins D in high regard, but I think Florida might have a little bit of an edge just how it's looking right now.
Yep.
Charlie McAvoy did not look good in that series,
And so that's where I'm like, but these are the parts of Boston that I'm like, okay, so these parts of Florida can be better. These parts of Boston can also be better.
Yeah.
Like Charlie McAvoy is somebody that can be a steady defender, but also can move the puck pretty well and contribute production from the back end for Boston.
If Boston wants to win this series, Hampus Lindholm can't be your best defenseman. I'll tell you that right now. Nothing against the guy, but you just need more out of Charlie McAvoy.
what a game 7 for that guy.
He won them the series.
Yeah.
Brandon Carlo tried to lose them the series, so
I love Brandon Carlo.
I do too.
that was not his best moment.
I'll fight you.
Just falls over in the corner, man.
Wasn't great.
Florida's X factor here. I don't know that this is that complicated. You guys talked about the depth scoring. Reinhart has been an elite goal scorer for them this year. They need him to do it.
50s.
Yeah. Go do that. Had 3 points in the first round. They need more out of him. Don't think that one's that complicated to me.
Turns out it's a lot harder to just stand in front of the net on the power play and fire home one-timers from the corner. Where half of his goals came from this year. So it's like, okay. Those teams watched that, and they're like, in a best of 7, we're going to work really hard to take this away.
Yep.
Boston has a great penalty kill, but Florida's power play has more to give than we saw in the first round, and that's where a player like Reinhart, I think, could pose a really big threat on special teams.
Could certainly be a deciding factor. When you look at a series with 2 high-end goaltenders.
I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the predictions. That's it.
I want to hear your thoughts because we're going to go to Boston here.
I know. Yeah.
Sell me on this team. It took them as long as it can take a hockey team to win round 1.
Yep.
Extra time, game 7.
Well,
What sells you on this team being able to compete with Florida?
and I'll tell you what sells me is, first of all, I'm not rooting for anyone. Meaning, 2 of my best friends are Joe Sacco, former Avs, right? Assistant coach in Boston, and Sylvain Lefebvre, former Avs player, former Avs assistant coach with Florida, does magic with their decor. Slide does magic with their decor. So what I'm trying to say is I'm torn a little bit here, and I've been, like I said to you, I'm on the Panther bandwagon all year long with Rudo. So, but something reminded me in the first round, like Boston was rolling the first 4 games. Yes, they had an opponent that was sleeping called the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were awful. But they were rolling. McAvoy, what's his name? Marchand was flying. And then all of a sudden at 3-1, they froze. There's a lot of pressure in Boston. There's a lot of pressure in that city.
This team lost 6 straight elimination games.
That's what I'm saying. And then it started creeping up into them. We can't close out. And then when it does, man, it's like the yips, right? It just does. And then it crept up into their game. They were dog poo-poo, game 5 and 6. I'm not going to tell you they were great game 7. But they changed something after game 6. First of all, I love the old school mentality. They all went into the hotel. We're all checking into the hotel downtown. We're taking the bus. We're going to change something because it's not working. And that's where you give credit to the front office and the coaching staff. And then Shattenkirk gave them an awesome speech. And I know we read about it, that he was awesome, the speech he gave. But I did hear from, I'm not going to reveal my sources, even though I did earlier. You know what I mean? Like, it was awesome. It was inspiring. And then they were a little tentative, a little timid in game 7 still. But then, you know what I mean? Like, you guys are too young, but there's the Montreal Ghosts of the Forum, right? Back then, the 93 run, all of a sudden, like, the Ghosts were alive, and it gave them their run. I just was watching that overtime, and I'm like, you know what? They're going to make something special, and it's a special play they made. It's an awesome play. And then this guy that gets called out the day before and doesn't crumble because he gets called out by Monty, he's like, and he answers after the game, yeah, I would have called myself out too. I love that. He wasn't saying, like, oh, he wasn't, your coach was mean to me. You know what I mean? No, he said, no, hey, switch places. I would have called myself out too. And then all of a sudden, I think that play is going to unlock a little bit of something. Go back to the Avs like 2 years ago. And, they can't get out of the round 2. And then all of a sudden, they get that magical play in St. Louis. And then all of a sudden, you're like, holy shnikes, they're out of the second round. There's no way they're losing. So I feel there's a little magic right now with Boston that way. I do believe that McAvoy's going to be better. Marchand was dog poo-poo, game 5 and 6. After his first 4 games, he wasn't good. But I do believe this is going to take the pressure off the guys. I think they're going in there with the best goalie in the playoffs. Jeremy Swayman is the best goalie in the National Hockey, in my mind right now. Are you going to see Linus Ullmark a little bit? Maybe game 2. Give them a little break and then get back in. It's worked all year long for them. Last few years. Do I believe in a 2-goalie tandem? No. But it was a long first round. So I do. Their PK is outstanding. I know it's my buddy Joe, but they shut down Toronto. It was not even existent. And I know Matthews wasn't there, and I know all the games. I know Nylander wasn't there all the time, and then they have this guy, Lorai on D, that I do believe they have to keep in the lineup. He brings something different. You know what I mean? He does bring something different instead of the, what's his name they got at the deadline there, 55 right shot. Is it Peak or?
Oh, Andrew Peak.
Andrew Peak,
yeah.
Who's been hurt.
It's a little something different. You know what I mean? I do believe they have the Brendan, the Carlos and those guys. So, you know what? I do feel there's something a little special here. That's why I'm going with the Bees starting on the road, breathing a little bit in Florida there. I do believe that the Bees have unlocked a couple things now, and they'll feel better because they need to be better from the first series, and I do believe they'll be better.
I appreciate the sentiment. If we bring up their top scorers, look, Megan, you talked about getting more from David Pastrnak. I think that's absolutely on the table. My problem is I don't think there's any more to give from a Brad Marchand or a Jake DeBrusk. I think you got as much as you possibly can out of those guys if you're Boston in round 1. And I just worry that they are going to come up a little bit short in that side of things.
There's some new names now that need
That's
to be
right.
in that list that aren't even there that need to show up for round 2. That's Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha.
Yeah.
Pastrnak needs more points than what's shown there.
Yep.
And I think that's what could be the sneaky thing for Boston.
Yep.
More to
comes
give.
up.
More to give.
That you nailed my X factor. It's Pavel Zacha. If you want to compete,
Could be Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle at the same time.
Put 'em together.
Honestly,
pick a center. Pick a center. Yeah.
interchangeable at that point because holy smokes, do they need to be better?
But you know why? You know what saves Zacha and Coyle? Is Trent Frederick scores 3 goals. So that's not on the list. He gets 3 goals, 3-point, right? Those are big goals. And then he played awesome with JVR, and then that freaking big right shot Brazo that they signed to an NHL deal in freaking January.
You know who I kept watching him and thinking of Ivan.
buddy.
And being like a year from now, this is Ivan
Game
in the
7.
postseason.
You just saw him play a Game 7 and a lot of pressure, and I was like, man, oh man, like this guy's freaking like
He was one of their 5 best players in that game.
100%.
I'm watching him like, this guy's going to win the game for them.
So now
he's awesome.
That's what I'm saying. So now that's what I was trying to say. If all of a sudden you get that production from the other guys because they were freaking not there.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Pasta wakes up. I do believe he wakes up from that play, right? Hey, cream rises to the top. They make big plays. So their bottom 6 did a good job.
Here's the thing, though. Replace Ilya Samsonov with Sergei Bobrovsky, and how many goals does Trent Frederick have in that series?
Well, no, I understand that.
One, maybe one.
We're about to find out.
True enough.
That's the point.
Yeah, but then Nathan McKinnon had 0 goals then, or whatever, in the first round because Hallebuck gave him 2 pizzas. How many goals did he have? 3 or whatever, Mac? I'm just saying, we can go
2?
back and,
2, I think. Yeah.
I know, there were 2 freaking pizzas.
Both
They were
5
both, not
bad.
good
I'm
goals.
just saying, I mean, yeah, and Wall was good. I'm not going to take anything away from Wall, but the Bruins were not there. I mean, they were frozen. And I'll go back to Avs 1.0 people. Go back to the 0-1 series against LA. Everything's going on all cylinders. You're up 3-1 in the series. Then you go flat and you go really nervous for game 5 and 6, and you are just dog poo-poo. And game 7, it didn't really go their way at the start, right? Till the big Rob Blake power play goal. And then all of a sudden, they found their way. And then everybody's like, oh, they're going to struggle against St. Louis because now there's no Forsberg. And
They did not.
they did not. So
All right.
that's where I'm getting my stuff from.
No more hiding. Let's see the predictions on this one.
Lonely on the right.
Eric, the only one going with Boston, doing it in 7. I decided not to be a coward for this series, and I picked Florida in 5.
It's
I was a
on.
coward in our earlier picks, so
It's
I
on.
had to be a not coward for this one.
It's on.
The only reason I gave Boston 2 is Jeremy Swayman.
Fair.
That's it for me. He's awesome. He's my favorite goalie in the NHL. He's locked in.
My 2 favorite goalies in the NHL right now, Bob and Swayman. I'm going head to head.
I just think there's too much talent in Florida. Not that Boston isn't a good team. I just think Florida has too much.
I think Boston's overrated. They're in the second round of the playoffs. I can't really throw darts here.
I have too many ties to Boston to say that they're overrated. Monty, Heinen, Carlo.
That's
It's too much.
Tough
So
ask.
I can never fully count Boston out, but
Heinen will be back.
I hope so.
Monty, I mean, those guys have the best coaching staff in the league. I'm sorry, but Boston does. With the Avs.
He's an experienced coach.
What you say? Do you want to fight?
No, I mean, I always say the Avs. You know that. I always say that. So, but I'm saying outside of this neighborhood here, Boston's got best coaching staff in the league.
that is the end of the Eastern Conference previews for round 2.
Yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to the predictions?
I think Florida comes out of this because Carter Verhaeghe is really big in important moments. A lot of game-winning goals in the postseason.
Very
a lot of
true.
overtime game-winning goals in the postseason. A Game 7 game-winning goal last year against Boston. I think that is why I ultimately came out with Florida coming out of this series in 6.
The clutch gene. It matters a lot. We do still have one more preview. Actually, yeah, this one should go out first. Obviously, the one y'all are waiting for should be next on the playlist. Go check out our Avs Dallas preview. We'll talk to you in that video.
We all silly like the mayor.